The movie starts with some troublemaking students holding girls hostage in an empty building. Soon, a masked man shows up to rescue the girls and quickly defeats the troublemakers one by one. This man is not just anyone. He easily makes them surrender. This masked man is Gata Araki. He is a special teacher chosen by the Japanese government to handle high school students' bad behavior. On his first day at a new school, he is made the homeroom teacher for Class 2C, known for having many troublemakers. Miki Ichimura, a fellow teacher, warns Gata to be careful with the tough students of 2C. But instead of being scared, Gata is even more eager to start his job, which surprises Miki. When Gata enters his class, he sees that the students live up to their bad reputation. However, this does not scare him. He happily introduces himself and tries to get their attention by handing out introduction forms. None of the students pay attention until the situation changes suddenly. When Gata tries to give a form to a student wearing only a black tank top, the student, named Codo, punches Gata in the stomach because he doesn't like him or his enthusiasm. Gata is in pain but still tries to give Codo the form with a smile. As a result, Codo hits him again and again. Then, another student, Kinzo Takehara, punches Gata and throws him out the window. However, Gata did not give up. He climbed back through the window with a smile and kept trying to give out the forms, even though he passed out after being hit many times. When Gata woke up in the teacher's room, Miki was beside him. The first thing he said was that he wanted to know his students better. But Miki had a different opinion. She suggested he forget about it because it would only cause trouble. She explained that the students in Class 2C were the worst in the whole school. They even made the previous teacher go crazy. That's why teachers at the school try to have as little interaction with students as possible, even during class. Miki advised Gata to do the same. But Gata did not change his mind. He was even more determined to do his job as the homeroom teacher for Class 2C. After leaving the teacher's room, Gata saw two students fighting over a 100 yen bill. He tried to stop them, and the fight eventually ended, although he got punched while trying to help. Later, while walking around the campus, Gata met a female student named Kanako Kondo. Unlike the other students, Kanako greeted him warmly and told him about 4 students he should watch out for. The first is Ogami, also known as Bon, who comes from a rich family. The second is Codo, nicknamed Madman because of his bad temper. The third is Ryota, called Iceman, because he never shows his emotions. The last one is Shishimaru, or Shadow Man, who is good at manipulating people. These 4 students are known as M4. But there is one student who is even stronger than them, Kinzo Takehara, the strongest student in the school. According to Kanako, Bon is the weakest among the M4. He is part of M4 only because he is rich. With his money, he can easily control people, especially friends. For example, the 2 students who were fighting earlier were actually friends, but Bon made them fight by offering them money. Hearing this, Gata goes to Bon and asks him to stop using money to ruin friendships. But Bon ignores his advice and says he enjoys watching friends fight over his money. After saying this, Bon walks away, feeling uncomfortable with Gata around. In the evening, Gata visits a cafe owned by Tobi Kobayashi, the father of a girl Gata saved at the beginning of the movie. Gata complains to Tobi about his new job and how he hasn't been able to make a difference. To cheer him up, Tobi gives Gata a motorbike he had been working on for a long time, hoping it will inspire Gata. The next day, Kanako tells Gata about a student fighting competition organized by Bon. The winner will get 1 million yen. Gata thinks this is a terrible idea. He quickly goes to the school library, where he has a secret room. There, he retrieves his special clothes and mask. He then rides his new motorbike to the competition site to stop Bon's madness. Gata beats all the competitors and declares himself a masked teacher, or Cayman teacher, in front of all the students. Cayman teacher is a program by the Japanese government to reform delinquent students, and Gata is part of this program. The next day, Bon tells his friends about the masked teacher. Angrily, Codo orders Bon to get rid of the masked teacher, or face being kicked out of their group. Meanwhile, Gata tries to get information about Bon from his former homeroom teacher, Ayumi Honda. But Ayumi avoids his questions and walks away. Feeling bad for Gata, Miki explains why Ayumi is so cold. She says Ayumi once had a student who tried to take his own life because of bullying. This traumatized Ayumi, and she stopped being a homeroom teacher. The student who tried to end his life, Satoshi Aimi, was Bon's friend. Now, Gata understands Bon better and decides to help him. He quickly finds Satoshi, who is now paralyzed and in a wheelchair, in a park. The scene shifts to Bon asking Shishimaru for advice. Shishimaru suggests a plan to trap the masked teacher. Organize another fighting competition with a prize of 5 million yen. The next day, the troublemaking students gather again for the fight. Shishimaru's plan works, and Gata, wearing his mask, arrives to stop them. Gata fights all the participants without hitting them seriously. He only gets serious when facing 2 of Bon's hired thugs. After defeating them, the other students run away in fear. Gata then surprises Bon by bringing Satoshi, who helps Bon realize his mistake. The next day, Codo is furious at Bon for failing to beat the masked teacher. Just as Codo starts beating up Bon, a student named Kigo Kusanagi intervenes, accusing Codo of being afraid of the masked teacher. This provocation works, and Codo swears to defeat the masked teacher. Codo's plan reaches Shishimaru, who informs Kinzo. Shishimaru is worried that if Codo defeats the masked teacher, he might target Kinzo next. At the same time, Codo's followers start causing trouble at school, looking for the masked teacher. Gata has to put his mask back on and leads Codo's men away from the school to fight them. Gata uses his unique style of holding them back without hitting them and wins. Angry that his men lost, Codo beats them and orders them to find and defeat the masked teacher. Tired of Codo's cruelty, some of his men plan to overthrow him the next day. When they confront him, Codo fights them without saying much. While Codo is busy beating his men, Kinzo appears and criticizes him for his cruelty. Hearing Kinzo's voice, Codo stops but then targets Kinzo. Just as a fight between Codo and Kinzo seems about to happen, Gata steps in and makes Codo back off. However, Codo doesn't give up. He and his 2 loyal followers take Miki to the school field to use her as bait for the masked teacher. As expected, the masked teacher arrives a few moments later. Codo orders his 2 followers to fight the masked teacher, but they are no match for him and quickly retreat. Finally, Codo decides to fight the masked teacher himself. Despite his skills and strength, Codo cannot land a single punch. The masked teacher easily blocks all of Codo's attacks until Codo is exhausted. The masked teacher tells Codo that strength alone cannot move people, then leaves. Codo, left alone, kneels down and cries out in regret. After successfully dealing with Bon and Codo, Gata's problems are not over because Kigo starts to suspect him. Gata also notices that Codo has become very quiet. He even stays silent when other students beat him, which makes Gata want to help him. However, Toby suggests that Gata let Codo help himself to move forward. Toby reminds Gata that he has been helping Codo all along. Meanwhile, Miki sees Ryota robbing 2 people using a stun baton. Before she can say anything, Ryota threatens to kill her if she tells anyone about it. But Miki is not easily scared. She tells Gata about Ryota's actions the next day at school. Kanako also shares that Ryota is living alone in an apartment and robbing people to survive. To learn more about Ryota, Gata talks to Bon. Bon admits he doesn't know much about Ryota, except that he has been robbing people and is good with weapons. Gata decides to visit Ryota at his apartment. He tries to persuade Ryota to return everything he stole and go to the police, promising to accompany him. Instead of listening, Ryota shocks Gata with a stun baton, leaving him powerless. Ryota guesses who told Gata about his crimes. The next day at school, he tries to kill Miki. Just before he hits her with the baton, Gata jumps in and knocks him down. Ryota then turns his attention to Gata, realizing he must defeat him first to get to Miki. Gata understands this and asks Ryota for a moment to get ready. He rushes to his secret room to put on his special clothes and mask, preparing for action. Seeing the masked teacher, Ryota attacked without hesitation. The fight between Ryota and Gata began, with Gata mostly dodging Ryota's baton strikes. He kept avoiding and blocking until he found a chance to kick Ryota's baton, sending it to the ground floor. However, just when Ryota seemed cornered, he pulled out a stun gun from under his jacket and shocked Gata, then kicked him down from the second floor. Gata survived but was badly injured. He treated his wounds at Toby's cafe, where Toby, concerned, suggested that Gata sometimes use violence to solve problems. He worried that if Gata was too kind to the students, he might be in danger someday. But Gata rejected the idea, preferring to use his heart to change the delinquent students. Meanwhile, on the school roof, Codo was being beaten badly by a group of students. Some of his former followers couldn't stand watching him get beat up every day, so they decided to help him and fought off the bullies. Seeing how kind his friends were, Codo was moved. He understood what the masked teacher had told him earlier. He got up and fought back against the bullies. After a fierce battle, Codo and his friends won and made up. In the evening, Toby accidentally met Ryota on a deserted street. Ryota, clearly in a bad mood, saw Toby and immediately beat him with his baton until Toby's head bled. Suddenly, a masked teacher appeared and hit Ryota so hard that he fell to the ground and apologized. But the masked teacher walked away without acknowledging his apology. Later, Toby was rushed to the hospital. His daughter, Siko Kobayashi, and Gata hurried to check on him. Toby told Gata about the masked teacher who beat up Ryota, which confused Gata because he wasn't the masked teacher Toby was talking about. Gata decided to meet the school principal, Kentaro Sugihara, to get information about another masked teacher. Sugihara confirmed that he had hired 2 masked teachers, believing it was the right decision to ensure the teacher's safety. After talking to the principal, Bon asks Gata for a private conversation. Bon reveals that he discovered Ryota's past. Ryota has been abused by his father since he was 5 years old. His mother, unable to handle the violence, left Ryota alone with his father. The father's abuse worsened until their neighbors reported him to the police. Ryota was then sent to a welfare home because there was no family to care for him. He grew up without any love from his parents. After hearing this from Bon, Gata shares it with Mickey. Mickey concludes that Ryota's expressionless face might be due to his dark past, which made him devoid of love, affection, and pain. Soon after, the teachers inform Gata that there is chaos in his class. Ryota has been kidnapped by 2 men he robbed, who want revenge. Realizing that Ryota needs help, Gata rushes to his secret room to put on his mask and clothes but remembers Mickey's words. He decides to save Ryota as himself, Gata Araki. He quickly goes to the location where the men have taken Ryota. Gata tries to protect Ryota, enduring punches and kicks in the process. Seeing the 2 men distracted by Gata, Ryota picks up a broken glass bottle, planning to kill them. Gata sees this and lunges at Ryota, blocking him and getting stabbed in the stomach by the broken bottle. Ryota is confused by Gata's actions, but Gata whispers to him, promising to always protect him. He tells Ryota he will not let him become a murderer because he believes Ryota has a bright future and should not dwell on his past. Gata is taken to the hospital for treatment and fortunately survives. However, that evening, Gata sneaks out of the hospital to find the 2 men who beat up Ryota. This time, he does not hesitate to use violence. After leaving the hospital, Gata immediately tried to find information about the other masked teacher. Meanwhile, while Codo was with his friends, Kinzo approached him to challenge him. But Codo has changed. He responded to Kinzo's challenges wisely, forcing Kinzo to leave empty-handed. Kinzo realized he couldn't keep the masked teacher under control. He doesn't like seeing bad boys change, like Codo did. Seeing his friend angry, Shishimaru promised Kinzo that he would get rid of the masked teacher. That night, Shishimaru started his plan by beating up the vice principal and threatening him to help find out the masked teacher's identity. Shishimaru said that if the vice principal refused or failed, he would kill every teacher in the school. The next day, the vice principal started questioning the teachers to find out who the masked teacher was. Seeing the vice principal's panic, Gata and Mickey decided to get information about Shishimaru from Bon. Bon explained why Shishimaru wanted to expose the masked teacher's identity and added that Shishimaru is a fast and tough fighter. For some reason, Shishimaru and Kinzo no longer trusted adults. In the evening, Gata decided to put on his mask and meet Shishimaru. Before they could talk, another masked teacher suddenly appeared and attacked Shishimaru. Gata quickly protected him from the black masked teacher's attack, but took a heavy blow in the process. With Gata down, the battle between Shishimaru and the black masked teacher was inevitable. However, Shishimaru was no match for the black masked teacher and passed out after a few hits. The next day, Kinzo overhears 2 students talking about Shishimaru being hospitalized after being beaten by the masked teacher. Panicked, Kinzo rushes to the hospital to check on Shishimaru, who is still unconscious. At the same time, Bon gives Gata new information about Kinzo and Shishimaru. It turns out they both came from the same orphanage, which is why they are close friends. One day, Shishimaru was adopted by parents who only wanted government aid money and did not care for him. They often tortured Shishimaru. Kinzo found out about this when he visited the house. Angry, he beat up Shishimaru's adoptive parents and saved him from their torment. Since then, both boys have lost faith in adults. After visiting Shishimaru, Kinzo returns to school, venting his anger by beating up everyone he meets. The black masked teacher was waiting for him and saw a chance to avenge Shishimaru. Their fight was fierce, and Kinzo soon became overwhelmed. He tried to run, but the black masked teacher chased him and forced him to fight again. Fortunately, Gata arrived in time to help Kinzo and took his place against the black masked teacher. The fight between Gata and the black masked teacher was evenly matched. Realizing the fight would be long, the black masked teacher chose to retreat for now. After that, Gata went to Sugahara to ask him to revoke the black masked teacher's teaching permit. But Sugahara asked Gata not to interfere with the other masked teacher if he wanted to keep his job at the school. Meanwhile, Kinzo tries to find money to pay for Shishimaru's hospital treatment. He was rejected several times until he met a man who offered him a job at a factory. However, the man only wanted to frame Kinzo. After Kinzo started work, the man stole the factory's money and accused Kinzo of being the thief. Gata had to step in to help Kinzo out of his trouble. Kinzo couldn't forgive the man who framed him. He took the man to an empty place at night and challenged him to a fight. The man used an iron pipe, while Kinzo only had his bare hands. The man was about to kill Kinzo when Gata arrived to save him. After defeating the man who framed Kinzo, Gata rushed to help Kinzo, who was hanging on the edge of a bridge. Unable to hold on any longer, Kinzo finally grabbed Gata's hand, and Gata pulled him to safety. Before leaving, Gata advised Kinzo to start believing in others. He said that hope would come from that belief. The next day, Gata accidentally ran into Kanako in front of the school. They walked into the campus, chatting friendly. Unfortunately, a group of students saw them and were unhappy about their closeness. They decided to teach Kanako a lesson. First, they hid Kanako's desk, making it hard for her to take notes during class. Then, they disturbed her by throwing pins at her while the teacher was teaching. Kigo, unable to stand seeing Kanako being bullied, stood up, caught the pin thrown at her, and beat up the bullies. When the teacher questioned his actions, Kigo strangled the teacher. No one tried to stop him, not even Kinzo. Kigo's actions became a hot topic in the teacher's room. He received a stern warning, and some teachers wanted him expelled. Only Miki defended Kigo, believing he must have had a reason for his actions since he rarely caused trouble. Fortunately, Kanako told Gata and Miki that Kigo was protecting her from the bullies led by Asami Noma. Miki had another reason for defending Kigo. When she and Gata visited Tobi's cafe, she revealed that Kigo's mother was her homeroom teacher. She inspired Miki to become a teacher. Sadly, Kigo's mother died by suicide 5 years ago after becoming frustrated with dealing with a troubled student. On their way back from Tobi's cafe, Gata and Miki accidentally meet Kigo while he is working as a security guard at a nightclub. They decide to wait for him to finish work so they can take him home. When the three of them arrive at Kigo's apartment, Gata and Miki see Kigo's little brother, Yuya, coming out of the apartment. They learn that Kigo works as a security guard to support himself and Yuya. The scene shifts to Asami and her gang, who are gathering and laughing happily. Only Asami is in a bad mood. When her friends ask her what's wrong, she coldly tells them to get Kigo out of their school at all costs. The next day, Asami and her henchmen start their plan. Asami's men drag Kigo to the school balcony to beat him up while Asami watches closely. But Gata appears just in time to save Kigo. Instead of beating Kigo, Asami's men have to face Gata, who defeats them without even touching them. Afterward, Gata warns Asami to stop ordering her friends to do her dirty work. Asami pretends to be regretful and promises not to repeat her actions and to apologize to everyone she has hurt. But it's all a lie. After parting from Gata, Asami tells her gang to take care of Kigo immediately. She believes they will succeed this time because she knows Kigo's weakness that will make him so angry he will get expelled from school, kidnapping Yuya. After that, Asami contacted Kigo and ordered him to attack the teacher on night duty at school. Kigo had to obey her because he didn't want Yuya to be hurt. Fortunately, the school didn't expel him but gave him another warning. After school, Gata and Mickey meet Bon at Toby's cafe to talk about Kigo. Bon had noticed something strange about Kigo recently and investigated. He found out that Kigo's brother was kidnapped by Asami's gang and gave Gata the address where Yuya was being held. Meanwhile, Kigo is still at school when he gets a call from Asami with a new order to burn his classroom. Kigo couldn't argue and started dousing the class with gasoline. Suddenly, Gata arrives and stops him. Kigo agrees to stop after Gata promises to save Yuya. Gata then sets out alone to the location where Yuya is held. However, Gata is not the only one headed there. The black masked teacher arrives, surprising Asami and her gang. He tells Yuya to leave before attacking Asami's men mercilessly. Gata has to restrain him, leading to a duel between them. After exchanging blows, the black masked teacher stops and takes off his mask, revealing his face. It turns out to be Kigo Kusanagi. Seeing Kigo, Gata takes off his helmet too. He tries to convince Kigo that violence is not the right way to change people. Gata tells him that trust and sincerity are the ways to change Asami and her gang. But Kigo disagrees, calling Gata naive for believing such things. He tells Gata to stop interfering and let him handle it his way. After successfully rescuing Yuya, Kigo visits his mother's grave. He tells her gravestone that he has proven his worth. Shortly after Kigo leaves, Gata arrives and swears in front of the gravestone that he will change Kigo for the better. The next day, Gata receives shocking news from Sugihara. He is officially dismissed as a math teacher. Sugihara doesn't give a reason, but thanks Gata for his service. Meanwhile, in Class 2C, Asami and her gang are planning something. After school, they trap a grown man in a love hotel and try to blackmail him. However, they underestimate their victim, who anticipates their plan. He captures Asami and her two friends and takes them to an empty warehouse. Fortunately, Kanako sees this and rushes to Toby's cafe to inform Gata and Mickey about Asami's situation. Even though Gata is no longer a teacher, he decides to save her. He quickly goes to school to get his clothes and mask. Mickey arrives first at the warehouse and tries to buy time, hoping the masked teacher will come soon. Thankfully, Gata arrives shortly after and beats up the kidnappers. However, one kidnapper holds a knife to Asami's neck and threatens Gata. To keep Asami safe, Gata doesn't move and endures the kidnapper's brutal torture. Seeing an opportunity, Mickey grabs the knife from the kidnapper holding Asami. She saves Asami but gets injured in the process. Mickey's sacrifice allows Gata to knock the kidnapper unconscious. Despite his severe wounds, Gata leaves the warehouse and meets Kigo, who is quietly watching him. Out of breath, Gata tells Kigo that he will protect all his students, including Kigo, no matter how much it hurts him because that is his mission. The next day, Sugihara received an order from his superior, Ikura, to rehire Gata as a masked teacher. Meanwhile, in Class 2C, Kinzo and Shishimaru are surprised by the arrival of their old enemy, Tomoya Misaki. Tomoya was a former student and a member of M4 before Bon took his place. He seems dangerous, so Sugihara asks Gata and Kigo to watch him closely. A few days later, Kotoro's men are found battered and netted in front of the school. They claim the masked teacher attacked them. Gata suspects Kigo and confronts him, but Kigo denies it. Kotoro and Ryota find out where their friends were beaten by the masked teacher. When they go there, they find two masked teachers and end up like their friends, unconscious and battered in front of the school. Tomoya takes this chance to provoke the other students to take revenge on the masked teachers. Gata and Kigo investigate who the two fake masked teachers are. Bon, however, finds out first. The troublemakers are the Inukami brothers, Ichiro and Jiro. They are not students but strong adults who easily defeat Kigo. Gata arrives too late and finds Kigo injured. He takes him to the hospital. The next day, the situation worsens as Tomoya claims he has beaten the masked teacher. While visiting Kigo at the hospital, Mickey accidentally finds his mask and clothes, realizing Kigo is a masked teacher. Kigo wakes up and realizes his secret is out. Mickey tries to calm him down, saying his mother's death was not in vain. Kigo, who claimed to hate his mother, finally admits that he loves her. Tomoya begins to form a large group at school to boycott anyone who opposes them. During this time, Kinzo admits to Gata that Tomoya's behavior is likely his fault. A year ago, Kinzo defeated Tomoya in front of his followers, causing Tomoya to lose his power. Tomoya then acted like Codo, using violence to control people, but his followers eventually turned against him and bullied him. Unlike Codo, Tomoya lost control and killed one of his bullies. Codo suspects that Tomoya hired the Inukami brothers to claim he beat the masked teacher, gaining student support and eliminating Kinzo, his biggest enemy. Feeling responsible for the chaos, Kinzo decides to confront Tomoya and end it. But Gata intervenes, offering himself as the target for Tomoya's revenge. Tomoya accepts and beats Gata. Moved by Gata's actions, Kinzo sacrifices his pride and apologizes to Tomoya. However, Tomoya responds by hitting Kinzo repeatedly. When Kinzo realizes it's too much, he fights back, delivering a powerful blow that makes Tomoya realize his mistake. Although the punch doesn't hit Tomoya, he feels its power. Tomoya admits his defeat and mistakes, falling to his knees and sobbing. This moment is short-lived as the Inukami brothers appear and attack everyone, including Tomoya. Despite their numbers, they are helpless against the Inukami brothers. Just when all hope seemed lost, the black masked teacher suddenly appeared and fought against the Inukami brothers. Moments later, Gata joined him in the fight. Even though the Inukami brothers were very strong, even for two masked teachers, they did not give up. The students watching the fight began to sympathize with the masked teachers and started cheering them on, raising their spirits. With renewed energy, Gata and the black masked teacher managed to defeat the Inukami brothers with a combined attack. The victory was celebrated with cheers from all the students in the gym. However, Gata and Kigo quickly left without saying a word. Once they were out of sight, Gata asked Kigo why he was helping the students. Kigo admitted that he did it because of Gata, not for the students' sake. He also said he would not change his methods as a math teacher in the future. The next day, Gata was called by Sugihara, who expressed regret over his own poor performance. Sugihara admitted he couldn't change the delinquent students without the help of a masked teacher. Meanwhile, Kinzo and Shishimaru let Tomoya go, who had to return to the rehabilitation center. Before parting ways, Kinzo told Tomoya that Gata had influenced him to become the person he is now. The next day, Gata gave out forms to his students, asking what they planned to do after graduating. Kinzo agreed to fill out the form but threw it back to Gata before walking out of class. When Gata checked the form, he saw that Kinzo wanted to get a driver's license to become a math teacher and needed Gata's help to achieve his dream. At the end of the miniseries, Gata reports to Ikura that he has completed his duties in his own way, successfully bringing peace to the school. So the moral of the story is, if you're ever feeling down, just remember that even the toughest troublemakers can be reformed by a masked teacher with a motorbike, a smile, and an unbreakable resolve, plus a few punches to the face.